Alright, this is what we're going to make today. It's some muscadine jelly, and muscadines are a specialty of the South. They grow wild. I grew up picking them with my grandparents and my great aunt and uncle, and then they would turn them into juice and turn them into jelly and all types of different things. So, alright, let's get into the kitchen and get started. Alright, so just a word about jelly. People make all kinds of crazy, making it harder than it really is to make jelly, and make it, you know, when you read about it, or it's like, this is so top secret, hocus pocus, I'll never be able to get it to work. It's not like that. If you look online, there's lots of ways to tell if the juice that you're using has pectin in it. Okay, if it has enough pectin in it to make a jelly. So look at those references and test whatever juice you're using to see if it's got enough pectin in it to form a jelly. If not, then you'll have to add pectin like Sure Gel or something like that. But they'll do this where you hold a spoon and you watch it drip, and you got to look at exactly how it's dripping and all that, or you got to chill a plate and put it on there. Okay, all that stuff will just drive you crazy. We tried all that for years. If you've got a juice that's got enough pectin in it to make jelly, all you have to do is use the proportions that I'll show you here. It's 2 cups of juice to a cup and a third of sugar. Cook it to 220 degrees, put it in a jar, and you'll have jelly. It's that easy. Alright, so this is our muscadine juice right here, and I can't show you how I made the juice because we made it actually a couple years ago and it's been in the freezer in Ziploc bags. But to make this, you're going to pick your muscadines, and it's important that you pick, you know, the black ones, and then you also need to pick quite a few red ones with that. So pretty much we go through and we pick all the black ones and all the red ones, because the red ones actually have more pectin in them than the black ones. If you pick all black ones, you won't have enough pectin in, and your jelly won't set up. So then you just put those in a large pot, and you cover them with water. And then you boil them, and you just watch them, and when they pop open, then you want to turn them off, and then you need to put these through a ricer, and I'll show you what that is, and that will get the juice out. And then you hang it in a jelly bag. I'll show you that. You hang it in a jelly bag, and then you'll wind up with this juice. Now, you can see at the bottom, even coming through the jelly bag, there's still some sediment down here. Doesn't hurt if that's in your jelly, it just makes it kind of ugly. So we try to let it settle out, and we pour off the top of that. Alright, so this is a ricer or a juicer. Once you've boiled your muscadines and they've popped open, you don't have to stir them, you don't have to mash them, you just put them in there. Well, you might need to stir them a little bit, but put them in there. When they start boiling, you know, stir them a little bit so they don't burn on the bottom. But you'll see a lot of videos where people talk about mashing them and going to all this work. What you want to do is wait until they pop open. And if you're mashing them, you can't tell when they pop open. You'll never know when they're done. So just keep stirring them, and when they pop, they're done. Turn them off. You don't want to cook them too long because you can set the pectin in them. So then once that happens, let them cool, and then you pour it in here, and you run it around, and this will juice it. We actually use, on our KitchenAid, there's a strainer on there, which is what we use, or you could use any type of a juicer that might work too. Muscadines, though, they have a seed in there that's kind of like a little pit. So whatever you're putting them in, just be sure that it can handle that. Okay, this is a jelly bag. It's going to come to you like this, and you just screw these little feet in here. Like this. You stretch your bag over. You can get these at Amazon, Walmart, lots of different places. Then you set this up on the edge of a bowl, and you put your pulp down in this part of and it'll drain through. Sometimes you got to take a spoon and stuff and kind of move the sludge away from the edges to make it drip some more. But that's what a jelly bag or jelly strainer is. When you search for this, apparently there's a purse called a jelly bag. So put in jelly bag strainer and it'll come up. All right, so let's talk a little bit about setup for making this jelly. So we got 2 pots going. Now, if you're from the South and you're making jelly, you know the only thing you can make jelly in is a white enamel pan. That's not really true, because you can see over here I got a black anodized aluminum pan, but when you do it in a white enamel pan, it reminds you of your mamaw. So that's why we really like using this pan, but I like to move fast, as you guys know, and I like to get a lot done. So we're doing 2 pots at one time. Now, up here in the windowsill, we've got 2 thermometers going, so we can tell what our jelly's doing. We got a jar here, so when you remove the thermometer, you put the sticky, nasty thermometer in there. Over here, we've got a pot with our jar lids that we're boiling to keep them clean. And then over here, we've got an old towel down here because you're going to stain it when you dribble juice on it. So we can then get our lids, put them on here. Over here are our empty jars, which we have run through the dishwasher and washed. Over here we keep a couple of bowls where we keep the sugar measured out so that we've got that ready, but we're just sort of mass producing it. We made 30 jars yesterday and we're making probably more than 30 jars today. So, you know, if you're doing 1 batch or 2, you won't have to have all this set up. Now you do want to be sure at some point you bring these jar lids to a rolling boil like that, and then you can shut it off and you know, let them just keep the lid on them and they'll stay sterile in there. You know, if they've been sitting there for a while, you'll want to boil them again right before you put them on. All right, so obviously I've already made a batch in here, but you to add 2 cups of the juice, 1.25 cups white sugar. Give that a good stir. And then we go to the stove. Okay, so now we're over at the stove. We turn it on high. No need to stir it. You can see the sugar's still kind of in a slurry on the bottom, but it's just stirred up a little bit. We turn it on high. We put a thermometer in here. And that, let's see, that's connected to this thermometer right here, and we're going to 220 degrees. So we're going to let this boil. Once it starts boiling, we're going to skim off the foam off the top. Okay, so now you can see it's just starting to bubble. It's getting close to time to skim. You'll see it. So once it starts forming the thick white foam along the edges, you can start skimming it. Now if it starts boiling too much, it'll incorporate that foam into the jelly and you won't be able to get it skimmed. So turn your burner down if you need to until you get it skimmed pretty clean. She's just got on a cotton glove with a vinyl glove over the top of that. That just keeps that steam from burning her hand. All right, and that's good enough. You can see there's still a little bit in there, but it doesn't matter. You actually, I mean, you could leave the foam in there. It's just going to be in your jelly and keep it from looking real pretty. All right, so the next thing we do is we crank it up to high, and we're going to just boil it, no stirring, no nothing, until we hit 220 degrees. All right, now here you can see, you got to be careful because this stuff can boil over on you. So I'm turning it down just a little bit. We're at about 217 degrees. You do want a good rolling boil like this. I'll let it drop down quite a bit. Okay, so that's a good height. You want it boiling about that high. And we're going to just keep boiling it until we get to 212.
220.
We're just going to keep boiling that till we get to 220. All right, we're at 219. You can see the bubbles are getting thick and glossy looking. And we're just waiting for 1 more degree, and then we're going to pour it up. All right, the temperature has hit 220. You can see it is still at a rolling boil. And this one is one from a previous batch that we didn't have enough to fill up, so I'm just going to top it up. Each one of these will usually make about 2 jars. Sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less. Okay, then while that's still hot, you take one of your jars that you've got in the boiling water. All right, so then get you a pair of tongs. Grab your lids. Now you don't want to touch the inside with your hands because that's sterile. Put that on. Grab you another one. Now they're very hot, so get you a pot holder. Crank them down pretty tight, not gorilla tight, but pretty tight. All right, and just set them off to cool. Now some people will take these and turn them up. We found that that's not necessary. They do that to kind of sterilize the lid, but what we found is it puts air bubbles into your jelly sometimes, and we don't like that look, and we've never had a problem with any kind of mold or anything on top of them. All right, here's our finished product right here. This is just a little bit left over. The other, you know, I didn't have enough for a jar, but you can see it's a good consistency. It's actually still just a little bit warm. But it's a pretty jelly. Okay, so when you get through with these, the USDA and like Ball and stuff, they suggest you run these in a water bath. You can look that up and see what the recommendations are. We don't do that. My family's never done that. We just do what I showed you. We put them in the jars, we sterilize the lids, and we put them on. And you know, the worst thing that'll happen, sometimes you might get a jar that's got a little bit of mold or something on it, but even that really has not been any kind of a problem. But if you like jelly, find you some muscadines and try making some of that. Thank you for watching.